Thank you for joining us yet again on our news desk on QTV. The headlines. The Lusaka Magistrate Court has acquitted former The Post newspaper's proprietor Fred Membe's wife, Mutinda, who was charged with obstructing police officers. The Law Association of Zambia LAZ says there is urgent need to review the controversial Public Order Act. UCZ Secretary General Reverend Peggy Kabonde has told politicians to stop pretending that they are committed to the dialogue process when they are harboring grudges against each other. Here now is a full detail of the news. The Lusaka Magistrate Court has acquitted former The Post newspaper's proprietor Fred Membe's wife, Mutinda Mazoka, in the case in which she was charged with obstructing police officers who had gone to their residence to execute a search on February 15, 2017. Delivering her judgment this morning, Magistrate Fide Samaundu freed Mutinda on grounds that there was no proof that she had torn the search warrant and obstructed police officers from conducting the search. Magistrate Samaundu said prime video evidence, which was captured by a ZNBC journalist who was assigned to capture the execution of the warrant, did not show the accused tearing the search warrant. She further stated that even if the warrant was torn, there was no weight it was going to prevent police officers from executing the search warrant, adding that even in its torn state, it was readable. And speaking after her acquittal, Mutinda said she is glad that finally the case is over, adding that justice has taken its course. And Mr. Membe, on the other hand, slammed the Zambia Police Service for what he has termed as a shameful act to frame a case of obstruction against an innocent lady. He further accused the Patriotic Front government of using the police for their own political ends.
You have heard it for yourself. It's a total abuse of the police. They are using the police for their own political ends, and it's embarrassing. If they had shame, a sense of shame, they would feel very ashamed. Trying to frame a case of obstruction against an innocent lady. So the magistrate made it very clear of what happened.
No, I think justice has taken its course. It's been a long process. We're glad it's over. But of course, we still have challenges in this country that we need to overcome. And the struggle does continue.
The Law Association of Zambia, LAZ, says the review of the Public Order Act is a matter of urgency. LAZ President Eddie Mwetwa said the association therefore hopes to see the draft bill to amend the Public Order Act before the end of this year. Mr. Mwetwa says LAZ has observed that the act is a source of tension in the country, especially during the elections. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Mwetwa says LAZ has taken note that the challenge with the implementation of the act relates to what it means to notify the police. Mr. Mwetwa says the police currently assume that once they have been notified, it is still within their reserve to allow or stop a procession or public meeting from taking place. He states that LAZ has since made recommendations to the Ministry of Justice to clarify this particular aspect of the legislation.
You probably know that the challenges that have been there with regards to Public Order Act is a question of what does it mean to notify the police that you're going to hold a public gathering, and what is expected of the police once you do the notification. There's a school of thought that holds the view that the act itself is probably not bad, even in its current form, but the challenge is the enforcement, the implementation. The police tend to think that once you notify them, it is still within their preserve or authority to determine whether you can go ahead with the public gathering that you notify them about. So we made recommendations to try and clarify.
United Church of Zambia General Secretary Reverend Dr. Peggy Kabonde says politicians should stop pretending to be happy or committed to the dialogue process when they are harboring grudges against each other. Reverend Kabonde says while the church has always been ready to facilitate the dialogue process among different political parties, the onus is with the politicians to be true to their commitment to the dialogue process. She says political leaders must have the heart of forgiving each other as many times as possible and accommodating divergent views. Reverend Kabonde notes that it will be easy for the politicians to engage in the dialogue process if they are tolerant to divergent views. She has since advised politicians to take reconciliation serious if the dialogue process is to succeed.
What we must know here is that leadership comes from God. And if leadership comes from God, if one is leading, the other one should be on the waiting list. And who knows, time may come, even the other one to come and take the same mantle. But if we are giving each other time and even a chance and an opportunity and even a support, even if I'm not in the ruling party, I think God can also, consider and bring us also in that capacity so that He can also test our giftings, our talents, our skills to lead when an appropriate time, comes. But even those that are in the ruling party, since they have an upper hand, they have all the machinery, they are the ones at this point maybe to drive the process so that they invite all the stakeholders involved, and the church can also be called so that they are part of that dialogue. I like what the Kenyans did. For them it was a simple matter, though they had come from a very hot situation, but at the end of the day, every Kenyan prayed, every Kenyan worked towards that dialogue of even people sitting, on the same table, sharing and even praying together, singing together, dancing together. How I long for our country to even go beyond what Kenya did, to even be inviting each other, to even be advising each.
Justice Minister Given Lubinda says the publication of Constitution Amendment Bill is now dependent on the holding of the Presidential National Dialogue Summit. Mr. Lubinda says his ministry is expecting that once this dialogue summit among political party leaders has been held, it will then be given the go-ahead to publish the amendment bill. He has told the QTV News that once the bill has been published, it will then be taken to Parliament for purposes of refinement of the Republican Constitution. And Mr. Lubinda has described as extremely mischievous and ill-founded allegations that government is applying the Republican Constitution selectively. He states that there is no way that government can breach the country's supreme law, as some want to allege. Mr. Lubinda says what government is actually doing is to follow the provisions of the Republican Constitution to the latter.
It is my hope now that the church will work with speed so that they can hold the President's Summit. After the Summit of Presidents, I, as Minister of Justice, am hoping that we will then be given the go-ahead for us to proceed with publishing the Constitution Amendment Bill and for it to eventually go into Parliament for the refinement of the Constitution. The allegation that the government is applying the Constitution selectively is extremely mischievous and ill-founded. There is no way that we can breach the Constitution without people raising issues. We are following the Constitution to the letter.
The government says its limited financial capacity to support the small-scale mining subsector remains one of the reasons Zambia's economy is still highly dependent on copper. Mines Permanent Secretary Paul Chanda has also cited weak production linkages between the mining sector and other sectors as the other reasons for the high dependence. Mr. Chanda says government is, however, focusing on generating geological information that can be easily accessed by both artisanal and small-scale miners in the country. He says with a strengthened institutional framework, provision of technical extension services will also be enhanced to reduce safe and efficient mining by artisanal and small-scale miners. Mr. Chanda said this when he opened the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group of States European Union ACP EU supported workshop on inclusive finance for development minerals held in Lusaka.
This subsector of growth needed so that dealing with others to help us. It's not a one means the issue. It's across all sectors. And GP materials and prospects to contribute to development national development plan by very 2019. This paper declared the life of deliberate initiatives to improve access to financing and business services by SMEs and ASMEs. Artisanal and small-scale miners have its own peculiarities, from large-scale mining, which require capacities to be developed within financial institutions. I am glad that today we have commenced this process by conducting training for financial institutions to be able to support SM in calculating loans. To make this initiative more effective, a similar program should be organized for SM and SMEs. Most of our SM and SMEs in this sector lack awareness of their vital finance and business services. It's my hope that the SCT EU development bureaus will begin to work on this in cooperation with relevant government institutions such as the Zambian government.
Speaking at the same event, United Nations Development Programme, UNDP Country Director Mandisa Mashologu urged heads of financial institutions present at the workshop to come up with a mechanism for supporting the growth of artisanal and small-scale miners. Ms. Mashologu says the potential of these small and medium enterprise SMEs is immense, and Bank of Zambia BOZ Assistant Director Balance of Payments and Debt Division Ivan Julu said the central bank hopes the workshop and further follow-up sensitization will help reduce the financial gap in Zambia.
It is against this backdrop that we come here today under the ACP EU Development Minerals Program managed by UNDP, so that we can have these linkages and see how we can more effectively make a dent in this growing financial sector and opportunities for small-scale miners. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I urge all of you captains of the finance institutions represented here to further support and put in place financing mechanisms leading to the development and the growth of SMEs in Zambia's development minerals sector. The potential is immense.
The overall objective, which is to provide a framework that will lead to the development of a stable, resilient, competitive, and inclusive financial sector that contributes to economic growth, broad-based wealth creation, and specific objectives sit within a structure that integrates strategies for improving access and enhancing usage and quality to improve the standard of living for Mozambique. It is our expectation that this workshop and further follow-up sensitization activity will help reduce the financial gap in a meaningful way.
A Bangladesh textile company has expressed interest in setting up operations in Zambia. Bangladesh export-import company Bremsco is one of the oldest and largest companies in Bangladesh that deals in textiles, garments, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, and ceramics, among others. Beximco Group Director Chief Executive Officer Said Naved Hussein said the company has a $1.4 billion United States group total investment with over 70,000 workers. Mr. Hussein explains that through textile or garment manufacturing, printing and embroidery, Beximco has partnered with global brands such as Zara, which is the main customer, while more finished products are supplied to Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger, among others. Mr. Hussein said this when Zambia's High Commissioner, Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to Bangladesh, Judith Kabijimpanga, visited the company's factory. And Mrs. Kabijimpanga has assured Beximco that Zambia is among the best destinations for investment in Africa, as it has abundant land, favorable government policies, access to U.S. market, centrally located in Central and Southern Africa, and a vibrant young population for labor. She noted with happiness that the company follows world-class corporate governance strategies such as respect for environmental sustainability, which has seen Beximco keep some wildlife resources while observing the zero-waste concept. Government has noted the need for a strong regulator as the country looks to invest in nuclear technology. Ministry of Health Permanent Secretaries for Administration and Technical Services, Dr. Jabin Mulwanda, says it is important that a strong regulatory framework is put in place in order to safely use nuclear technology. Dr. Mlonda has, however, reaffirmed Zambia's commitment to using nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. Speaking when he officiated at the Atomic Energy Agency mid-term coordination meeting in Lusaka, Dr. Mlonda says the meeting will provide the member states with capabilities to develop and maintain a consistent high level of safety for transport of radioactive materials within their regions.
This is important that we review our performance. The project aims to provide the member states with the capabilities to develop and maintain a consistent high level of safety for the transport of radioactive materials within the Africa region. As a country, we are committed to this, and it comes at a time when we are investing increasingly in nuclear technology to support our various developmental endeavors. For us, a strong regulator is key, given our desire to invest in nuclear technology. You know the benefits of nuclear technology, and to safely use nuclear technology, we need a strong regulator. This is why we welcome this meeting, in the sense that we will learn from your various experiences and make our regulator stronger.
Speaking at the same event, International Atomic Energy Agency Director Technical Cooperation Shauka Abdul Rezak has commended the Zambian government through the Radiation Protection Authority RPA for committing building competent authority effectiveness on regulating the transport radioactive materials.
I would like to take this opportunity to underline the importance of human capacity building. Each competent authority needs to develop a training program for its staff that covers the following principles: concepts and technological aspects of transport safety, procedures to be followed by the regulatory body for assessing applications for authorization, inspecting facilities and activities, and enforcing regulatory requirements. There are many other considerations related to this and that need to be taken up and discussed. I leave this to my colleagues on the ground. Before closing, however, I would like us to remind ourselves the rationale for our coordination meeting. These meetings are necessary to take stock of things we have done over the years, do a critical review of what works and what doesn't work, and ascertain where we are in regard to delivering tangible results. As already noted, you need to carefully think about the design and design plans that participating member states have put in place to sustain what you may have achieved under the project.
The Nature Conservancy and African Parks AP have proposed to invest $5 million per annum in the management of the Kafue National Park ecosystem. TNC Country Director Dr. Victor Siamudala says his organization is looking forward to working with African Parks and the Zambian government to manage the Kafue National Park and the surrounding game management areas through a public-private partnership. Speaking during a familiarization tour for members of the Zambia Parliamentary Conservation Caucus, Dr. Siamudala says the funds will be used to create the enabling conditions to secure the park from threats, create conservation outcomes and an enabling environment to would-be investors in the park and grow the tourism industry in Zambia.
As the Nature Conservancy TNC, we are looking forward to working with our partner organization, African Parks, and the government of the Republic of Zambia through a public-private partnership to manage the Kafue National Park and the surrounding game management areas. Jointly with African Parks, we propose to invest $5 million per annum in the management of this ecosystem. These funds we hope to invest in creating the enabling conditions to secure the park from the threats and create conservation outcomes that will make this park an eco asset, and also to create the enabling conditions for private sector investment to grow the tourism industry. It is our hope that we can increase the number of bed spaces from the existing 300 plus beds to probably about 800 to 1,000 beds, and also to grow the tourism season from the current 5 to 6 months to about 8 months. Through these efforts, we hope to increase the number of tourist arrivals from the current 14,000 on average per annum to about 250 to 300,000 tourists. And this will generate a lot of revenue and job opportunities, particularly for communities that are within the game management areas. And also through the efforts of increasing wildlife patrol capacity, we hope to recruit probably to close to 300 wildlife police officers to supplement the existing number that is below 200. And these are job opportunities that we think communities in the GMOs can take up.
And speaking earlier, African Parks AP Director of Conservation Development, James Milanzi, bemoans the bad road network in the Kafue National Park, describing it as harmful to the realization of the dream of the park's flagship status. Mr. Milanzi says it is for this reason that Africa National Parks and the Nature Conservancy, TNC, have committed themselves to help government properly manage the park and attract tourists to Zambia's largest and oldest national park. Meanwhile, Bangweulu Constituency Member of Parliament, Anthony Kasandwe, who led the 10-member delegation to the park, says there is need for more investment in the park to improve infrastructure, including the road.
Now, if you were a tourist, and we saw some tourists there, if you travel that distance, by the time you reach home, I think your story will not be very good to attract other tourists. So as African Parks, what we're just suggesting and TNC is that we'll improve this infrastructure to a level of all weather, such that tourism season should not be limited to 3 or 4 months. It should go on throughout the year, depending on the tour operator's ability to attract tourists. You should not stop bringing in tourists here simply because of the bad road.
And we think that going forward, maybe if more resources were invested in this park, the infrastructure in terms of the road, it can be developed. But actually, in short, the road is very, very bad, and we need more investment so that we ensure tourists. Just imagine you are a tourist, a stretch of 60 kilometers, you are taking 6 hours. So what time would you have to view the game? So it is important that the infrastructure is worked on to ease the movement of the people that are coming to view the park. Otherwise, that is the impression. But otherwise, other members of parliament can say something.
Transparency International Zambia TIZ says there is need to establish whether a due diligence process was followed in hiring ZCCM Investment Holding Chief Executive Officer Dr. Pius Kasolo. Some media reports have suggested that Dr. Kasolo acquired South African citizenship way before he became the ZCCM IH CEO, deeming him ineligible for the position. Dr. Kasolo has, however, denied such allegations, saying those behind them are doing so in order to bring him down. But TIZ board chairperson Ruben Lifuka says there is need for Zambians to clearly understand matters surrounding the nationality of Dr. Kasolo to avoid future implications. Mr. Lifuka says in the absence of such additional information, it will be very difficult for Zambians to reach any conclusion on the matter.
The whole saga around the ZCCM IH Chief Executive needs to be handled with a lot of care. There have been a number of allegations made, but I think more needs to be done to understand the backgrounds to the case and to look at the implications going forward. The question that still lingers in my mind is there was a process of identifying and recruiting the chief executive officer. There was a process of due diligence done at a particular time. So why were these issues not raised? And therefore, one does not want to immediately jump in and say, well, there's something untoward in the recruitment of the chief executive officer. In the absence of additional information, we feel constrained to the whole saga around.
The Federation of Free Trade Unions of Zambia, FFTUZ, has observed that its impending merger with the Zambia Congress of Trade Unions, ZCTU, is likely to fail. Recently, the ZCTU and FFTUZ resolved to merge to form one trade union mother body which would be called Trade Union Confederation Zambia, TUCZ. But FFTUZ President Chingati Mshika says his union remains ready to merge with the ZCTU and is still waiting to hear from the ZCTU on the matter. Mr. Mshika has told Q News in an interview that the FFTUZ will continue working independently while it waits on the ZCTU to state its position on the impending merger.
Of Free Trade Union of Zambia, we've been talking about it for a long time. I think now it's one thing that we have put a wait. We are waiting for our colleagues, other stakeholders to give their position, but to us as FFTUZ, we have decided to move on. You know, whether a merger is there or not there, I think we have decided to move on because we can't continue looking at things that are not much making fruition, and we want to urge our members to continue working hard and to continue representing our work as well. The merger may not be there, may be there or may not be there, but all we are saying is we are independent as FFTUZ and we are ready to work and we are going to work.
Economic and Equity Party EEP President Chilufya Tayali has rescinded his decision not to testify in one Member of Parliament Shimba Kambwili's forgery case. Mr. Tayali has indicated that he would not testify against Mr. Kambwili because his conscience was not clear owing to the selective manner state was prosecuting certain individuals while others are left to go scot-free. He says he has since rescinded his decision on allegations that Mr. Kambwili has been sending people to threaten him. Mr. Tayali says he has been threatened to drop the forgery case in which he is the main witness. Mr. Tayali says he has since submitted the recorded phone threats he has been receiving to the authorities.
And like I said, you know, for me, fighting corruption is not limited to one person. It's not something personal. It's not that I want to fight corruption in isolation or in selective manner. I want to fight corruption on anyone, those in government and those who are not in government. And recently I've not been happy with the way the PF were coming out on the report of the financial report, the financial intelligence. I was not happy. And which, you know, gave me these mixed feelings in some of these fights that I was doing, particularly on Bakambwili. But nonetheless, now, look at what has just happened. You know, instead of, you know, people showing remorse, if they have realized that their case is taking a dangerous twist on their part, instead of being remorseful, they start being criminals, start committing more crimes. Because it's a crime to threaten somebody's life. It is a crime. And it is not acceptable. So, nonetheless, I am so resolved. For me, when people threaten me, when people challenge me, like when Bakambwili, the cases started, he challenged me. He said, let him go to court. And we are now in court. And this time around now, they are asking me to withdraw. I'm not going to withdraw. They are basically telling me to prove my case in court. And I'll make sure that I prove my case in court. This case will have to see the end of it. It will have to see the end of it. It is not going to be stopped by anyone. I've gone to the police, I've reported the matter, and the police have started investigating it. I will also make sure that I bring it before the court. The court has to know. Because I am the state witness, I am the key witness in this case, and I'm being threatened.
The Zambia Council for Social Development, ZCSD, has called on all political parties taking part in the 26th July Lusaka mayoral by-election to tame their cadres to avoid voter apathy. ZCSD Executive Director Louis Mwampe has noted that a number of people failed to turn up during voting due to political violence. Mr. Mwampe tells Q News that the violence that occurred during the Chilanga parliamentary by-election resulting in voter apathy should not repeat itself. He says political parties fueling violence should realize that they are not just causing voter apathy but are also reducing the number of voters or would-be voters to vote for them.
I think if you are a credible leader and you know that for people to vote for you, you don't need apathy. You don't need to win by people not voting for you. What we need is for, first of all, to ensure that the voting becomes free, the campaigns that have been opened becomes free, so that even those parties, all the political parties, are given opportunity to campaign freely. So we appeal to the Zambia police to ensure that there is security of all the voters across the country, those that are voting, and all those that are campaigning must be given protection, not just one political party which should be given the protection. We know that there are we have 9 candidates in Lusaka, and all the 9 candidates will need to be given free campaign time, so that they don't come out and be the police not giving them an opportunity to campaign. So the duty of the police is not just to provide security to one political party. There are 9 candidates that are standing in Lusaka.
Political parties participating in the Lusaka mayoral by-election have been commended for conducting peaceful campaigns so far. Youth Aid Chairman Chungu Kachenga has since urged the youth to resist the temptation of being used to engage in acts of violence ahead of the by-election slated for 26th July 2018. Mr. Kachenga has noted that the youth are mostly used by politicians for their selfish gain during, before and after elections. He says the youth should not allow themselves to be paid by politicians to engage in violence.
We would want to caution all political players that are participating in the mayoral election that is scheduled for the 26th of this month to observe the Electoral Code of Conduct and not to engage in any form of political intimidation or political violence. Okay? We are working with law enforcement agencies to ensure that we do not have a repetition of what happened in the Chilanga by-elections. Okay? We are encouraging everyone, every political party player, to ensure that they abide by the law. We do not want to see youths being unruly. We want free and fair and transparent elections to the office of the mayor of the state of Lusaka. Okay, we want very issue-based politics and not issues of propaganda and political violence. So our message is sternly to the political players and as well as the youth to say we do not want to record instances of political violence. We would want.
That item concludes our news, but before we go, here's a recap of stories in the headlines. The Lusaka Magistrate Court has acquitted former The Post newspaper proprietor Fred Mendes' wife, Mutinta, who was charged with obstructing police officers. The Law Association of Zambia LAZ says there is urgent need to review the controversial Public Order Act. UCZ Secretary General Reverend Peggy Kawande has told politicians to stop pretending, but they are committed to the dialogue process when they are harboring grudges against each other. Thank you so much for being with us throughout the news. Bye-bye. God bless.